Dear cannabis friend and pioneer John Sinclair. The headline reads, marijuana activist and Detroit's residential radical John Sinclair has died at age 82. A champion of legal marijuana counterculture, a hero and poet, John Sinclair passed on Tuesday morning at age 82. Sinclair was an influential advocate who is best known for his fight toward legalizing marijuana and for his role as a band manager for the MC5. The Davidson native was also a champion of civil rights and co-founder of the radical anti-racist group, the White Panther Party. Sinclair was famously arrested for felony possession of 2 joints in the late 1860s and sentenced to 10 years in prison. The arrest sentence galvanized counterculture activists, and many came to his defense with a 1971 freedom rally at Ann Arbor's Chrysler Arena, headlined by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, with performances by Bob Seger and Stevie Wonder. The 14-hour event drew 15,000 people, and Sinclair was released from prison in Jackson 3 days later after serving fewer than 3 years. Lennon, who'd been arrested for marijuana possession himself, wrote a song for Sinclair, which appears on the John Lennon and Yoko Ono album, called Sometime in New York City, released in 1972. The song lyrics read, "They gave him 10 for 2. What else can Judge Columbo do? We gotta set him free," John Lennon's lyrics say. The song John Sinclair was covered by 1990s rock band Blind Melon, which may have exposed a new generation of pot activists to Sinclair, including former hash banger organizer Nicholas Zettel, who heard the song at age 44. His dad took him to hear Sinclair speak in person a year later. It was a very inspirational event in my life that led me to passionately pursue cannabis legalization activism. Something about the injustice of his story lit a fire in me, he said. He was also inspired to go to school in Ann Arbor after learning about the hash bash and Michigan's medical and legal cannabis movement. I want to keep the radical spirit thriving. I and many others owe a lot to John and his righteous ways. In Detroit News interview in 2021 on the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Rally for Sinclair, the activist said he was surprised it took Michigan so long to legalize marijuana. The truth prevailed, he said. People didn't quit using it, you see, and more people got on the side of the felons, and pretty soon they had to remove the felony. It just didn't make any sense. Sinclair had been living in the Cass corridor in recent years. He was able to see marijuana not only be legalized in his home state, but become available. Dispensaries would now dot the entire landscape from county to county. He thought it was great, he would say. We finally got the squares to come around, he would say. He was definitely on the cutting edge of counterculture and definitely Detroit's resident radical. Sinclair was scheduled to speak on Saturday at the Ann Arbor Hash Bash, a rally and festival that's held at noon the first Saturday of April on the University of Michigan. The first Hash Bash happened in 1972, just months after Sinclair's historic Freedom Rally. Instead, this Saturday's 53rd annual Hash Bash will particularly be a de facto remembrance for Sinclair. Even coordinator Jamie Lowell said there's already a portion of the bash earmarked to pay homage to other legalization activists who recently died, including Rick Thompson, Brad Lamitte, Gersh Avery, and Rory Gold. Several politicians and cannabis activists, including John's wife, photographer Lenny Sinclair, are scheduled to speak. He and Lenny Sinclair, in my mind, they kind of kicked off the modern movement that led us to where we are now in Michigan. It's taken tens of thousands of people over decades to get here, said Lowell, adding that he was grateful for Sinclair to be able to speak at the Hash Bash in 2023 in spite of bad weather. He decided to stick it out and offer up his wisdom to us anyway, and he did. People really, really appreciated it. It was very special. A lot of people were there for the first time, so to hit a Hash Bash and get an address from John Sinclair was pretty cool. Sinclair leaves behind a huge body of work in the form of books and recorded poems and essays backed by blues and jazz musicians. His last book, Collected Poems from 1964 to 2024, is currently at the printer, set to be released next week by Lieber at Ridgeway Press. John Sinclair was my hero and poet in my youth, and he became my good friend, said Lieber. Sinclair is survived by his daughters, Celia Sinclair and Sonny Sinclair, granddaughter, Beyonce, and his ex-wife, Lenny Sinclair. You guys, we just lost a good one, a real good one. Can't wait to hear what all of you guys think about Mr. Sinclair and his impact on our industry. Sending it back at you.
Yeah.
Super sad.
2 sad stories in a row, man.
Man, if I could put one in the air for old Johnny boy, I'd do it right now, man.
Well, you can. If you have one, if you didn't drop it in the water.
No, I can't. Not
Can't
for
do that,
about,
man.
4 more years.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Like Biden? Just like Biden.
Just like Biden. When Biden,
God.
Matter of fact, when I get off federal probation, me and Biden gonna smoke.
Fair enough.
Ooh,
Fair enough.
I'm not going there. I'm not going to go there.
Mean Hunter?
You're gonna smoke. You're gonna smoke that Sleepy Joe. Oh man, this is super sad story. I like what Nick said in the comments section. He says I bet Rory was just waiting to meet him with a big bowl of hash. And, Rory Gold was a big activist.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So
I like that, Nick. I like that a lot. This is going to be a really emotional hash bash. Mm-hmm. The Michigan crew out there that's been a part of this with him for decades now is definitely feeling it. I know that a lot of my friends who are out there that have been along his side for the last 20, 30, 40 years, they're heartbroken. Mm-hmm. So
how about my man still doing the hash bash at 82 though, scheduled to still do it this year?
Yeah,
like, man, that's off, man.
100%.
Still grinding and getting it at 82 years old.
I totally
honestly
agree.
Because it's a love, right? When you fall in love with something, when you truly fall in love with something, like we have all fallen in love with this plant, it becomes a piece of your fiber. You can't move on without it. You don't go somewhere without it. And so it doesn't matter how old you are. They'll have Pebbles Trippett, who comes out in her wheelchair to events with her caretaker and speaks.
Yep.
Right? So
an LV2.
Yeah, it never leaves you. It doesn't matter. And matter of fact, I bet you that at 82, it's what motivates you still.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And I make sure too, I want to make sure that we close out the show today, Rico, in the memory of John Sinclair. And I just feel like, man, we just need to say, weed for the people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hats off and respect and prayers to all the elders of the community that have passed.
Yeah, and thoughts and prayers to all the families